now.
Gunn wants to see me. I'll tell him I'm taking the week off.
A week?
Nance, I just meant we need to get a handle on things. I'm sorry, sir. I know I should be in Atlanta. I got a phone call.
Which is more than I got.
Apologies. I should have called.
At the very least. The city has been begging for federal help for weeks and we're kicked out in less than 24 hours. Yes, you should have called. I had to hear it from the Atlanta office this morning. Apparently Holden's introduction wasn't well received by the safety commissioner.
Have you spoken with Holden?
No, I'm asking you as the leader of your department. What did Holden say that so offended the city? The commissioner's excuse that this wasn't really a kidnapping was a convenient means to an end. What did Holden say?
Honestly, sir, nothing out of line. He gave the commissioner an overview, that we look for connections. He did explain he felt there could be a single black predator. It may have been more how he said it, sir, than what he said.
How so?
He might have gone into more specifics than we can support right now.
The impression from the Atlanta SAC is that Holden was trying to steer the investigation into avenues the city doesn't want to explore right now, at least not publicly.
Sounds like politics, frankly.
Name me a major city where there are no politics. We have to be smarter than this. If you sense that Holden is wading into political waters, it's your job to stop him. Or at least give me the opportunity to anticipate the fallout.
Yes, sir. You're right. I should have read the room better.
We want them to understand why they need us, not why they should be wary of us.
I understand, sir.
This cannot happen again, Bill.
Greg.
Yeah, we thought you guys would be gone for weeks and we didn't want the interviews to lag.
How'd he do?
A little hesitant.
He shit the rug, didn't he?
It was a team effort. The transcript should be done by tomorrow.
I thought for sure I'd unsold you on that.
I didn't picture you living in a place like this.
Small?
Sparse. Your life seems very abundant.
One's expansiveness of spirit needn't be reflected by one's personal surroundings.
Nice save, the Dyke mentor story. And just in time.
I had to come up with something that would make him feel accepted.
Well, it worked.
But then he adamantly denied being homosexual.
He was actually more defensive about that than he was about being called a sadist.
He thinks the lady doth protest too much.
He protests a lot of things. Rape, torture, murder.
By saying that he didn't engage in those aspects of the crimes, he characterizes himself as a non-participant. It's amazing how he's able to compartmentalize.
We have to consider, Henley was a kid. He might view his participation as having been beyond his control.
He knew exactly what was going to happen to the victims he procured, and he made a conscious decision not to intervene. So whether he participated or not, he's culpable.
I think there's a distinction between procurement, as fucked up as it is, and murder.
Distinction, yes, but not absolution.
I'm not excusing him. I'm just asking, can a teenager be held responsible for the actions of an adult? He was trying to please Coral. He was probably afraid of him.
Actually, he seemed to be more in thrall of Coral than he was afraid of him.
So is that why he stuck around? He got off on watching Coral kill?
How do we know Henley got off on it?
When I did something, whatever it was, I enjoyed it.
Bill, he assisted in killing 20 boys. What could possibly be defensible in that?
All I'm saying is he was 14. Can we really lump him in with Kemper and Brutos? Without Coral's influence, would he have ever progressed to murder?
There's no way to know. But incredibly, he acknowledges a deep connection with a man that he saw do horrific things, who even threatened to kill him.
Maybe his need for acceptance was more powerful than any moral boundary.
And Coral exploited that.
No, we wouldn't have gotten any of this if I hadn't...
Improvised?
Maybe made some shit up?
Touche. If we're gonna teach an interview technique, it can't be strictly following the instrument.
Brian seemingly acted without malice, and because of his age, I'm choosing not to pursue legal action against him. But the state cannot ignore that he had ample opportunity to go for help or to speak with you, his parents, after the fact. He chose not to. Either he was evading detection, or he has no concept of right and wrong. The state is obligated to try to understand his motives, to ensure he is not a danger to himself or the community.
A danger?
I am transferring him to the Department of Health and Human Services for evaluation.
Will we be able to keep him at home?
Yes, you have been assigned a caseworker and a mental health professional. The court will render decisions based solely on their evaluations. Your compliance in this process is mandatory and will be critical in determining Brian's future.
Social workers are underpaid and overeducated. Don't want to try and sit this person down and explain your way out of this, it won't go over well with them. No matter what hoops they present, it's best to jump through.
I thought once they found out Ryan was telling the truth, this would be over.
Seriously?
He's not bad.
Just tough to promote? You're down the rabbit hole. Did I miss anything that matters?
No, we were just about to start talking objectives.
Wendy is absolutely right. We're not asking Manson about killing. What we need to find out is how a diminutive, uneducated ex-con convinced a group of middle-class teenagers to brutally murder 7 strangers. Studied catechism, considered becoming a nun. Honor student, school paper editor, lettered athlete.
Looks like a high school yearbook.
All grew up in average homes, had high school education, some had college. Then all became runaways and somehow washed up in Manson's family.
Have you noticed any changes in his behavior? Self-soothing?
Not at all.
Sports, Mr. Tench? He rides his bike.
Almost off training wheels.
Corporal punishment? Never.
No.
We'll submit regular reports to the Commonwealth Attorney with their recommendations. Ultimately, he'll make all decisions moving forward.
Try not to moisten yourself before you get inside.
I kept things, little trinkets, reminders of my experience.
The Polaroids.
I could hold them, possess them. Did you save enough tape for the charlatan?
About extra.
He'll need it, he's a talker.
You realize Kemper keeps reeling you in?
He's the most cogent, credible subject we've ever interviewed.
The bar is low.
If Kemper hadn't turned himself in, he could have avoided capture for as long as he wanted. He's an incredible resource.
You seem to have a hold on them, even from prison.
Listen, man, Tex, it was hard to tell if he was at the end of an old high or starting a new one. Now, I went back to the Cielo Drive house that night. I sent one of the kids inside to see if he really done it.
Why didn't you go inside?
It was a crime scene. I'd have been in violation of my parole.
Manson said he lifted these from him.
He said he stole them?
He was bragging about it. He's on his way to the hole.
Is there a red eye?
10 p.m. Arrives in Washington at 6:30.
See, the contradicting stories don't concern me. Neither is a completely reliable source. And I'm not so sure that Manson was a total loss. He had influence over his young followers, much in the same way that Quarrel had over Henley. He used sex and drugs, but he also had an overt philosophy.
If you can call it that.
What is helter-skelter, really? It's borrowed, but how is it useful to him? What if the point of helter-skelter wasn't a race war? What if it was about control?
Over the family.
A cause to forge solidarity.
What if Tex and Sadie did come up with the idea of a copycat crime? It's proactive, risky, revolutionary. It may not have been what Manson intended, but they called this bluff. They were doing what he only talks about. From Manson's perspective, his authority would have been threatened.
He'd had no choice but to go along with it.
At the La Bianca house, Manson went in and tied up the victims before sending the killers in. He wanted to remind them that this was his plan, not anyone else's.
He was doing whatever he could to keep authority over his family. Control, or at least the appearance of it, was worth any cost. Even 7 murders.
When we were leaving, he did a weird thing. He asked for my sunglasses, so I gave them to him. A guard chased me down and said Manson bragged to everyone he stole them from the FBI. He was willing to go to the hole just to look powerful.
On the one hand, you have a bunch of drugged out kids. On the other, a practiced, manipulative ex-con. And you're arguing that Manson was forced into it? Tex gave a pretty detailed account of succumbing to brainwashing.
He didn't dismiss the idea that he would have killed without ever meeting Manson.
Manson found the right people.
Young, submissive, alone.
But primarily people with untapped potential. People who saw themselves as outliers. People who only had to have their fear removed to do what they did. He simply helped them be who they were.
Thank you. Shilling for the FBI probably is not what you expected to be roped into.
Oh, it's fine. I did plenty of it at BU.
Well, I appreciate it, and I do want you to have a good time. Speaking of which, someone I would love for you to meet. Warren. This is Dr. Wendy Carr.
It is a pleasure, Dr. Carr.
Warren is our liaison with the LEAA, so basically he manages our purse strings.
The good news is, I'm already a fan, so there's no need to sell me.
Well, that's a relief.
Let me have a drink sent over. What do you have?
A glass of white wine, thank you. So you've actually read our reports?
They are so much more interesting than budget committee minutes.
It's a low standard.
Well, I really have read them, Doctor. May I call you Wendy?
Of course.
I've read the transcripts, I've read the analyses, and they're fascinating and truly original.
We were asked to keep our originality in the basement when we started.
It must have been quite a shock, coming from the world of scholarship and daylight into a bunker full of G-men.
I'm doing work that I wouldn't be able to do anywhere else.
You are hardly what I expected from the Dr. Carr commentary on Ed Kemper's mutilation fantasies.
Well, I'm afraid to ask what you expected.
Something not so form-fitted. A lot more tweed.
We went into Berkowitz thinking we were just going to hear that same old demon barking dog story. What could we possibly learn from a guy that crazy? But we got him to admit that the whole demon thing was totally made up.
He said that?
A complete crock. And he said the shrinks ate it up faster than anybody.
But hiding in a basement or hiding behind a typewriter, what else do you enjoy?
I don't consider either of those things hiding.
What I mean is, you have a very compelling presence. Spending all your time in such solitary pursuits, you may not even be aware of your effect on people.
He's been key in developing many of the techniques we now use in the field.
Bill's been regaling us. He must have some amazing stories, too.
I've had many of the same experiences Bill's had.
I'll leave you in Agent Ford's hands. Excuse me while I take a leak.
What's important in the Manson story is that we're learning what compulsions motivate behavior. For him, it was the appearance of control. His crimes can be boiled down to that singular need. By correlating psychological fingerprints to known behaviors, we're building a primer to understanding criminal action.
How did you escape the dog and pony show? You know it's cheating to hide with the wives. How'd you get away?
I grabbed onto the first passing body. Happened to be Holden.
That bad, huh?
Well, I should have known.
I'm really just selling somebody else's ass up the ladder. He must have remembered the Bible story because he convinced the other boys to take the body and tie it to a cross. He's exempt from charges, thankfully. But we have to go through court-mandated protocols.
Is Brian talking to someone?
We've got a psychiatrist, a social worker, benchmarks we have to meet.
How's Nancy?
She's not grasping that Brian might need some kind of help. On the other hand, she won't leave him alone for 5 minutes. That's really why she's not here tonight. We haven't left the house since it happened.
Just give it time. This is huge.
I'm gonna ask for your discretion.
No, Warren, I'm going to see myself out. I insist.
You can get Holden to loosen up a little.